Hi, welcome back to Firepower Threat Defense. In this section, we're going to discuss network address translation and how to configure it with a Cisco Firepower Management Center. Let's go ahead and get started on network address translation. We're going to just talk about how to configure it from the FMC. There's two things to actually configure it, from here. And so here's under devices, right? We can go to our devices, add our IPs and routing, which we've done if you've been following along. Devices, we have NAT. This is where we'll do our VPN, site-to-site remote access, quality of service, platform settings. If you've been following along, we have done that one already. And that was kind of intense, wasn't it? There was a lot to it. And then we haven't got to flex config yet. That's where we're inserting CLI into the code, or certain code, into the CLI. Let's talk about NAT. So you can configure it for the appliances if you have a 7,000 or 8,000 appliance, or obviously FTD. If you had an ASA, you would go configure it on the ASA. So I'm going to say threat defense. I'm going to configure two different policies here, one for pod 19 and one for pod 20, since I'm going to use different NAT IPs. Okay, pod 19 NAT, easy peasy. So pretty straightforward here. We can go through a couple things. So I got my policy here. Now, if you have an older version before 6.2, I'm not sure when it starts, 6.2 something, you weren't able to do NAT inside anything but Firefox or something like that. Chrome didn't work. It was pretty crazy. Anyway, so you see that we have the direction, the type, source interface, destination, original packet, translated packet. Now, the NAT rules before, this is really what's called what? Twice NAT, right? This is kind of also called manual NAT, isn't it? So we used to call it twice NAT. It gives us the most control because we put the rules in the correct order. We choose them, where we put them in here, NAT before or after. So it's just the most flexible if you have more complex configurations. So we'll use a manual NAT. However, object NAT, also known as auto NAT, we usually just say object NAT because use objects, is the easiest because it automatically configures your rules in the correct order based on what it considers most to least specific, but that was kind of the caveat at the same time, what it considers the most to least specific. So you can't change that. So depending on what you need, you may do both. So for example, I'm going to do auto NAT now, and when I get to site-to-site VPNs, I'm going to do manual NAT right on top of it. So let's go ahead and add a rule. First thing we'll see is manual NAT comes up, static and dynamic is my options. And notice I have options of rules. Where do you want to put it? Before or after? And so what I want to do actually is we're going to do an easier auto NAT. I don't need much done with this NAT. I need from my inside to outside. So the port is going to, what I want right here, sorry, I want to start with my objects. And I'm going to say my zones inside to outside. And under my translation, I need to create some objects. You cannot put an IP address in here. So I just need address to address, and I could just do like a point-to-point type of thing. So if I come under here and I added an object, and I said inside host 19, okay, and that host IP, this is the actual IP address of my inside local, the address before translation. Okay, so I'll add that. Now I can just create another one here for the outside, and I'll put it over there. Pod 19 host outside. Now I'm going to use the outside interface of my FTD box. I'm going to use the outside local as my inside global. That's very typical, isn't it? I use my inside host here, my real host, inside host 19. I use the outside address, should be down here. Nice, showed up. That's not it, not the default. The outside address here. So we typically do that. We'll get a /30 on our network, whatever, and we use the address on our interface as our translated address or inside global. I'm not doing anything different here. Now we could do PAT, but I have to do manual NAT for that, right? I have to do twice NAT, manual NAT. And so on the advanced, Translate DNS replies that match this rule. Absolutely, I want to do that. So basically, if it matches that rules, it's inside going out, we're going to go ahead and translate. In this example, in this class, it'll work fine, but that's probably what you want. This is for IPv6. We're not going to worry about proxy ARP, so I'm just going to say OK. I'm going to verify that I have my zones, and I notice this. Notice I always, man, you know, you learn your lesson real fast with FMC. You double check more than usual because the CLI makes everything so fast, right? I didn't get the destination in there for whatever reason. I just was doing it too fast. Now I'll look at it. I think I'm good. So let's go. I'm just going to say cancel because I hit save. All saved. Let's go out here. Now I've got one for 19. And notice I don't have to put these in the ACP or anything because if you remember, this is in the Lena process. Now this is going to be for 20, right? Pod 20 NAT. So this is pushed out, right, to the device from the FMC still, but not through the ACP. Let's do some auto NAT again. Let's do the exact same thing for pod 20 in this case. We're going to do auto NAT and static. It sounds good. See if I can get my interfaces right this time. I'm really good at double checking myself though when it comes to the FMC. You learn your lesson fast, as I mentioned. Let's create a couple more objects. I could have done it at the objects or just do it here. Pod 20 host inside. Right. .20 is the actual IP address. That's my inside local. Making sure these objects are correct is what I troubleshoot the most, either in class or at customers. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and put those in. Okay. Making sure I'm getting the right ones in here. Outside. Okay, there we go. Inside and outside. And again, I might go up to objects, like if this is deploying or something. Now I've got my policy assignments. I verify that they're right. I'm going to save and deploy. And during that time, I didn't turn on my DNS. It would work in this example, but I still think it's good admin to turn that on. Okay, and deploy. So we should see that in 19 and 20. NAT, right? There we go, just NAT. Good. Click both those and say deploy. We'll let that run for a minute and then come back and test. But since we're here, let's go to object management. And that takes a second to bring this up. And just I like to verify, this is a pretty big troubleshooting spot when you're doing NAT, object-based NAT for sure, right? So let's go and look. Here's my inside host 19. What I do over here, I look for the pencils, right? We can see that those are the ones we created. 10.pod number, .1.pod number. That's how I've done my inside host, right? .20, my inside VLANs. And we can see the pencils here, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to go to page 2. The other thing, you can come up here to the filter, you know, because most of my customers have hundreds of objects, and then we'll search through them, right? So I could say pod 19, right? It should come up and bring that to us. There it is. But pod 19 host outside, that's what I wanted, right? From this page. I use this a lot in large access control policies to search for rules as well. These look great. Let me get rid of this. There we go. So let me come back over here. And there's my 20. That looks right, and that looks right. Number 1 step for NAT. And we'll go back here and wait for this. Okay, and we're back. Looks like it was deployed. Let's do this. Let's go out to 19 here. So now I'm at the CLI. Let's do show, well, let's do show NAT. do some commands. Show NAT, right? Nice. Here it is. Here's my objects. Show run NAT. Okay, and so there's the actual command. This one up here shows the hits on top, and then show, how about xlate, right? The old ASA command. Absolutely, that works here, right? So this is looking good. I think everything looks exactly as we want it to look. It couldn't get more simpler than this, right? But what we wanted to do was get out to the or get from the inside host out. So let's go out here and take a look. Pod 19 inside here, there, boom, it's working, right? So I'm RDPing from my pre-filter in, using my pre-filter where I'm RDPing from the outside in. That's if you saw one of the previous videos, right? So got that. Here we are right here. So let's go try. Let me run back over here to my FMC before we try anything. I want to show you something. So I'm going to come over here to policies, access control policy. I think I have it open. Objects. These are the things I always keep open, right? Here's the ACP. And yep, here it comes. Just took a second. Now, let's take a look at what we have here. What should happen? First off, my web advertising will be blocked, but we're not logging these. We wouldn't know if they were or not. My DNS over UDP, right, my queries, it's allowed, but they're inspected. So if I go to a CNC site, this should be blocked. Now, what I really want to look down here is the URLs. We allow marketing inside. That's not going to test that one, but we will this one. We're going to stop all social media and we're blocking it. Right? It should be blocked and we should get some sort of response. But we're allowing news with an interactive block here. Right? We have an interactive block here on the news. So we should get that. And then now, hold on a second. There's a lot with this guy. We're going to see this block a lot. This is that one where we're blocking everything. Right? We have this URL object that we can create, the list that we can use that allows the URLs before this one. We'll see. We'll have to start using that, or I'm going to have to take this one out just for us probably to do this class, right? Because it does indicate or dictate that we need more training with that. We have stop outside to inside bad countries, don't we? That's the only thing that's running. We're allowing updates from Microsoft, though. And then lastly, I have a permit IP any here, but it has to be inspected. So if I get down to the end, we'll see if it gets through this. And the way we can do that is through our analysis. Let me go ahead and open this, and then we're going to go out while that's opening, and then we can refresh it when we get back. But here it goes right here. And let's see, I did open 19, so we should have gotten some connection events. Analysis connect, there it is right there. We have some block with resets. I think because I had tried to click on CNN or something. So no, that was just Google. So this is funny right here, right? Hell, we don't want people going to Google, right? Remember that rule I just showed you, the block all. That's not the news and media. Now, I need to show you something here, this URL category. Now, this URL category is working because it says this is a search engine, which is blocked, but news and media, computer and internet, whatever some of this other stuff is, right? If that's the case and you see URLs and they come back as unknown, here's what you want to do. It's an important piece, guys. So stop doing your emails for 1 second. And take a look out here. We want to do system integration. System integration. Now, what's not on is this by default. Odd that it's not on, maybe because it takes a lot of overhead. Not sure with Cisco, but what that says is if it's a URL and we don't know the category, then we're going to query Cisco Security Intelligence to tell us. Now, where does Cisco get this? Well, good question. So I turn that on, no redeployment or anything. Go ahead and turn that on. You want that on. It should be on by default, but look at this. I'm going to go to Break Cloud for a minute. Now, this tells me what the categories are. So if I say I'm not a robot and I type, storefront. I don't know if that's storefront. Come on, man. Okay. And I typed in lamley.com, right? Look that up. Let's see what it comes. Okay. Web trustworthy 96. That's good. Hey, they changed my web category. I asked them to do that. It came under society before. Training and tools. Thank you, Bright Cloud. Anyways, This low popularity is a failure. I'm going to have to talk to him about that one. I'm just kidding, because if I go to Cisco.com, it kind of says the same thing. It says it on all of them, obviously, but so if I looked up Cisco and stuff, so oh no, they changed theirs to high popularity, but you get the idea here. This is where they get the reputation of what their web categories are, right? And so if you go to brightcloud.com, you can figure out, you can look up a site and it'll tell you what category it is. I'm just glad they updated mine finally. Anyways, if we look at this, let's go back out here. Now, check a look at this. I'll try to make this as big as possible for you guys. It says you're attempting to ask for a forbidden site. You continue to the site, clicking the button, but we're watching you. What? This is an interactive block. That's what we did with the news, right? So you can make it say whatever you like, you know, that this is fine. But notice I said okay, so then it went. Not that I want to see anything there. Now the social media, I think we just blocked. Now typically we would get a response on social media, but because of the way there's certificates, the FMC won't work with getting an HTTP response from them. So this is typical. So how about this one, MySpace? How about BitTorrent? Now where's this one coming from? If you guys can see that, right? Your access have been site, you're fired. Well, that's just one of those bad sites, guys. Right? That's that non-work site. Sure it is, BitTorrent. So it could be from rule 1. Let me show you that. I want to do this though. Chickenkiller.com. What a horrible name, right? Like what the heck? But I found this looking through CNC snort rules that this was one of the things, and it's going to actually, well, it kind of died and then came up here, but it kind of was trying, right? Now, let's go back here and let's go look at some connection events. This is the fun part, isn't it, guys? I know you guys went a long ways to get to this point, and now we're starting to kind of block stuff. Now we have security. Now we have security intelligence. Well, here's an intrusion block. That's my CNC. So if I come under here to an analysis intrusion events, now, hold on, guys. I'm scratching the surface here with network analysis. I have a whole, 2+ hour network analysis section coming up, right? This is just scratching the surface. But notice here was that's Chicken Killer. The user bypass wasn't allowed for the CNN and stuff like that. Now I can scroll to the right and we can see our URL reputations, our URL categories. These look good, right? These, but so it's important that we know the categories. However, you have to be blocking by category. So we can get into this, but watch this. Well, hold on, guys, for a second. I want to do this. Oh my gosh, this guy here, 172.17, he's bad. Oh my gosh, I know he's bad. And so I'm going to blacklist him. And then as soon as this is done, the phone rings because it immediately takes effect. You don't have to redeploy. It stops the TCP session. It's your CEO saying my home computer just died. You meant to click this guy down here, but you did this guy, or you did your email server, whatever. People do this all the time. Where do you go and fix this? Right? You're going to go under objects, which is here to here, and we'll see it. This is the only way to put things in the blacklist. You can do this for URLs as well in DNS servers. So there it is right there. So when you do that, now you have to come in here if it was a mistake and take it out. I see a lot of people do this with a mail server, right? Stuff like that. But that's why we put the whitelist in the security intelligence or access control policy, isn't it? So now I have to redeploy to make that work again, right? I can make it take effect immediately, but if I want to take it out, I have to redeploy. Now, notice here's my intrusion. I had an IPS event, DNS request for known malware to domain chickenkiller.com. Now, what I want to show you here is click here and then click here again. Go through this in detail in the network analysis section, but I wanted to show you a couple things real quick. What rule blocked this? Sally calls says I can't get to the site. Well, how do you know what blocked it, right? In here it says it was blocked. Now I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to keep going here, and it's going to tell me somewhere around here. So I knew it was over here, way to the right. UDP DNS queries is the rule. So now if I didn't want it blocked, or if I wanted it blocked and it wasn't, I would just come back over here and find out UDP DNS queries. That's my first rule. Of course it is. So I hit this guy. He never saw another rule. He got stopped right here from this IPS policy. It's very important that we understand who blocked what. We could do the same thing here. If I go back to my connection events, where am I? Lots of tabs I always have open. Here they are. So if I get table view and I look at these and say, who's doing what on this. And I come over here, and again, I'm going to see the same thing. Here is, for each one, the access control policy, the access control rule, the pre-filter policy that was used. We haven't created a NAP yet, so that's the default one. So now this is why you name your rules very descriptive. So when you come in here, you can find out which rule is blocking what. So that's some fun stuff right there, guys. So I went through the CLI and looked at, some basic, there's not a lot of NAT stuff, but just the basic ASA commands you can run out there. And then came in here and saw that our host was getting in and getting to some sites, and it is blocking, right? It is blocking. And when we get to our next section, we're going to do our file policy. So then we'll come back in here, add into our ACP, and use a file policy to do malware blocking.